Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Webinar Talk Show. I'm Tom Singer.
And I'm Eliz Green. And as you know, our theme for our second season is Don't Cancel Your Event. And really, maybe our theme for today should be Don't Cancel Your Education. Don't cancel your training, because we have a wonderful guest to talk about how maybe your event or your training may look different this year. It doesn't mean that it has to look not as good, that it could maybe be even better.
Our guest today has shown through surveying his audiences that the training that he's doing is extremely effective, and it's impacting the actions that the people who participated in these trainings will actually take after it's over. And isn't that what we all want when we host any type of event, whether it's a conference or a training session for our people? So today we have with us Mike Domitrz from the Center for Respect. And Mike works with companies, he works with the military, he works with high schools and colleges, and he does a lot of really interesting and important training for everybody. So Mike's job is he helps people and organizations build mutually amazing relationships. So Mike, welcome to the Webinar Talk Show.
Hello, Liz and Tom. Great to be here.
Glad to have you. So Mike, let's talk a little bit about the Center for Respect and what the topics you teach are all about.
Yeah, we were founded originally on the grounds of trying to end sexual violence. That's a big part of what we continue to do this day. Over time, what happened is I wanted to be about how to do the right thing instead of just stopping the wrong thing. And so over time, that would develop into helping people build a culture of respect, whether that be the military, educational systems, or corporations. And that's what really got to helping people build mutually amazing relationships. So it's a positive how-to instead of a don't. You know, nobody wants to be told what not to do. People want real skills they can use and enjoy using.
I love that line about how you wanted to teach people to do the right thing and not just stop doing the wrong thing. That's pretty powerful. And I know, because I've seen you speak many times. My kids have been in the classes that you teach. You've done a really good job of opening up conversations with people about how to, have relationships. Most of that, from my standpoint, was through keynotes and large trainings for organizations. So that was booming along. And then March 2020 came. What was March like for you?
Yeah, so April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. So my work, that is a month a lot of organizations focus on bringing in programming on a culture of respect, because they want to make sure that they're aligning with that month. So the middle of March to the end of April is a very busy time for me on the road. An extremely busy time. And as many of us know, in 3 days, it all disappeared. And when you're mission-based, it's not just about, the business is gone. It's about, how do I make a difference now? So you really had to look in the mirror and see, how can I do this? And look in the world and see, how is it possible?
Well, in the organizations that you work with and the topic that you focus on, this is a really important topic. I mean, when you look at high schools and colleges and the military, this is really important stuff that you teach. So poof, middle of March, everything, all the events stop. What did you do? How did you and your clients work together?
Well, after the initial thing that many of us went through, reaction, which is fear, confusion,
crying in the corner. Yeah.
Yes, correct. You're right. And how do we survive this? Then I started looking at, what can I do? And I started looking at what some others were doing, and I saw people doing webinars. And so what I thought was, I'm just going to attend this webinar. I attended it and I thought, that's it. That's all you have to do to create a webinar. And I said, I'm going to put one out there. And I had never drawn my own audience. I was always hired by organizations, and they gave me a huge audience to work with. So I was very apprehensive. I thought, will I get 10 people? Will I get 20 people? And thankfully, in 2 weeks of just 2 weeks time, we had 500 register, over 400 attend. In the world of live events, to get over 80% of a non-paying event, we were ecstatic. And that webinar would change our business probably forever. Definitely for the last 6 months, and probably forever.
Well, because we've been friends for a very long time, and in full disclosure, Mike's been a mentor of mine, and one of the reasons that I am still in the business of professional speaking. But I know, as you said, this is not just a business. This is a mission for you, and you have always really looked at the metrics of is this being effective in your live events, keynotes, trainings, those things? How have you seen the shift to going from that webinar to the things that you're doing now with clients? How effective are those things?
Yeah, well, and here's the thing. Thank you, Liz. I absolutely appreciate our friendship. So thank you so much for those kind words. Here's the thing. When people looked at me and said, you're high energy, you're super interactive, you're in trouble. Because that's stage. People want you in person. They want you on stage. That's not what they're looking for live virtual. And so I listened to that a little bit and thought, oh no. And thankfully, when I did that webinar, it was just myself and people were like, finally, high energy, almost hyper interactive. And I thought, wow, people actually want that live virtual. They want even more of that live virtual.
And you know what? I hate to interrupt, but that is so true because I heard the same thing. And I just did a program this morning and I got an email from somebody who said, I've probably been on 50 webinars since March and you were the first person who was engaging and high energy. And I thought, wow, that doesn't say a lot for other people, but it is what people want.
Yeah.
Yeah. And unfortunately, there's experts and talking heads telling people, and I'm not going to name people, it's just a difference of opinion I have, saying, oh, just get in front of the camera and just share. As if you don't have to bring your best self. If it's not your job to engage and do the same thing you would do on stage. Now, it's completely different. It is a different experience. There's some people are like, well, it's just the same. I'm the same person. No, it's a different experience. What's neat about it is that it gives you intimacy. You are one-on-one with somebody. Instead of in front of 500 people in an audience. You may be in somebody's bedroom because they're doing their work from their bedroom. You may be in somebody's living room. And so it's very intimate. And you have to understand that relationship with the camera is a human being on the other side. And imagine if you were talking to somebody, passionately talking to an individual, you got to bring that every single time. And Liz, I know the question was, hey, how do you evaluate this? And how do you see whether it's working or not? And we have always, as you mentioned, we've always tracked. Every audience takes a survey at the end of my program, live in the program when I'm on stage. So I said, I'm gonna do the same thing live virtual. And what was amazing, Liz, was the numbers were the same. They were still 93, 94, 95% of the audience saying they strongly agree they are more likely to engage in the skills we taught after experiencing that program live virtual, which is the same numbers we actually got on stages. So when you can show clients that, our clients would see that and be like, wow, if next year this is still holding on and we have to go virtual, we're not worried about going with you because you're getting us the same results live virtual that were happening live in the room. Now, we'd love to have you here because we love the relationship. But if we have to go live virtual, we're good. And you've got to be tracking to prove that, because even if somebody's watching this who's a meeting planner and they're thinking, well, that's good for me to know. No, you want those who are funding your event, your higher ups, those decision makers, to see those numbers. Because when they see them, they go, oh, maybe the stereotype I have that this isn't effective, it can't work as well, just a step below, it's less quality. We can break those myths down.
Well, I would think that because, as you said, it's this intimate relationship that you're having with the person on the other side of the camera, a lot of what you talk about is intimate. Like, these are things that happen in settings that are close. And when you're having that discussion, I know on stage, you set things up and you're very interactive. You call people on stage. How do you get people to have that aha moment that I've seen you do live on a stage? How do you get people when you're having this relationship to have those aha moments?
Yeah, you got to rely on the technology that's in front of you. So if you're on Zoom, I'm all about the chat. And I know people are like, well, everybody's using chat. Well, then they're not using it right if everybody's bored with chat, because if you're using chat right, you're asking questions that people want to answer in the chat, like they're excited to answer. And you're calling that out. Hey, Julie, oh, awesome answer. John, great answer. Now they know they are part of the program. They know this isn't pre-recorded. They know that if they say something there, oh, I just caught that comment, Andy. Let's talk about that. And they know now that this is live and what they say matters. Here's the coolest part of this. They would never interrupt you live on a stage the way they will share in a chat. And so don't get me wrong, in my line of work, you get people who interrupt you and heckle you actually, because it is such a provocative discussion for some that they get uncomfortable and they want to challenge, but it's rare. I mean, it's not common. However, in chat, they'll say whatever they're thinking because they're not saying it to you and they don't feel they're interrupting you. And it gives you amazing fuel for incredibly thought-provoking conversations that would have never occurred in a live room ever. And this is the key. You've got to use the technology for what it allows you to do and have fun with it, right? If people see you're having fun, they want to have fun, you're never going to get 100%. Can you get 95? Can you get 96 to really engage at that level? And that's the goal. So that's what we're doing. We're still giving away prizes. I am still bringing people on live. So when I'm on a webinar, my team, I have a producer sitting next to me, and they're turning panelists, or they're turning attendees into panelists, and they're role modeling situations in front of all 500 people or 2,000 people. So now they're like, oh, I want to win the prizes. I'll get on. We give prizes they really want. And so we're making it interactive. We're making it fun. It does not feel like their typical virtual event.
Mike, have you run into any clients though who are like, oh, we don't want the chat room to be turned on? I had a client who I do the same thing you do, and they were adamant that, oh, we don't want that. It's too distracting. And I had to fight to have the chat room enabled.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's not uncommon that somebody says, oh, we're a little timid about the whole chat thing. And so what I'll do is I'll tell them, let me just show you what's happening at the results. Now, this was key, Tom. I showed them that survey, right? So let's just give an example since I'm referring to it here. I'll pop it up here real quick. So I would take them to a survey results like this that show 100% of people say they strongly agree with the behavior we're teaching, right? Now, I could have made this prettier, but this is exactly.
I don't think we're seeing it.
Oh, you're not even seeing it. Okay, good to know. Thank you. There it is. Sorry about that. All right, there it is. So we show 100% strongly agree with the behaviors, but this is where it gets cool. You get people saying, hey, this is real. This is absolutely amazing. You get language that's really powerful, and you tell them that happened because we used the chat, right? That they were able to engage. When they see results, suddenly they're willing to engage and take and try things. And here's the key, Tom. You got to set parameters. If you just open the chat, you could have a nightmare on your hands. I work with middle school and high school students sometimes. If you open the chat with no parameters, you could be in serious trouble. So we set the tone. This is a slide we use in our live programs. Hey, we're going to ask everybody to be kind today. Be generous, be curious. Look at this picture and be those words. And then also be inclusive in your language throughout this discussion. We want everybody to be involved, which means we lead with love and respect. If you disagree, we lead with love and respect. And so by doing that, you create a foundation of understanding and how you're going to have these conversations.
So, and that leads me to the other thing is you've used a term that I like and that I use, and that is live virtual, as opposed to a lot of clients want speakers to pre-record for them. And I like the live for the exact same reason of the chat room and everything like that. What do you do if a client says, oh, we're nervous about live because of bandwidth or whatever?
To date, I have not done one recorded because I push it that hard. I am a big believer in you would never walk 500 people into a ballroom and put on a video for an hour of a speaker. You would never do that. Why are you doing that in their homes? Why are you doing that in their office place? That is not an experience other than anything they could find on YouTube or anywhere else. And I know people go, well, we'll have the speaker live and ready to chat as they're watching them. So I'm listening to you while you're having a separate conversation in the chat with me, not the same conversation. You're just creating more distraction, actually. You're using chat inappropriately in that case. So I push all day long live, and every client has been, I'm so glad we did that live. Even when things had maybe moments that were challenging, they're like, it gave us an opportunity for great education because of that comment that was made. Here's the key though, Tom. You can't have somebody following a script. If you're a speaker that gets up there and tells your story and then follows a script, and you're not really a subject matter expert, the chat could chew you up because you don't know how to respond to those situations. So you need an expert who is truly an expert, not just a speaker.
Yeah, I just told a client the other day, conversations don't have scripts. And right. I thought that sort of came out of my mouth, and I thought, better write that one down. That's good.
That's 100% correct. The audience never has a script. So you can't expect them to follow yours, right? And so you actually have to be, if you're there for the audience, it's not about the script, it's about the audience. And I want to be there for the people in the room.
So Mike, you also then took this idea of doing your own webinars and doing these live virtual events for your clients. And if I'm not mistaken, you also then have taken it some steps further with a course and some other stuff. What else have you done since March with your business?
All right, so late April, we did that webinar earlier that we talked about. And when we saw that many people responding, we thought, wow, we actually have a group that wants more information from us, especially based off the results of the surveys. And so 6 weeks later, we actually opened registration for a course 3 weeks later, started the course 3 weeks after that, and we had over 100 people from all over the world engaged in the course. Now, here was the key to the course, and it still is to this day, because we're launching the next model in a couple months. It's a live course. So a lot of people out there here, well, wait, if we're going to do a course, then we have to pre-record 36 hours or 24 hours. In my case, it's 24 hours. It's 36 lessons over 24 hours over 4 months, 17 weeks. And people are like, my goodness, that would take a lot of ramp up in production to get that out there. And I'm like, I'm going to find a way I can do this right away. So I told everybody, every lesson will be live. And so every lesson was live on Zoom, and you don't have to pre-produce. Now, we have to create the handout for every module that I have to create, but the lesson could happen live. So you were way faster to market. Like, that's why people are like, how'd you pull that off in 3 to 6 weeks? Well, I didn't make it all in 3 to 6 weeks. I made it over the course of the 17 weeks, which allowed me to also alter the course as the modules advanced. So it was awesome. I was able to be more flexible because of that.
And that's super smart, not just for a speaker. Like I'm interviewing you and I'm taking notes for my own business, but that's actually really smart for an organization or a company that wants to get some sort of learning out there, is they could create a live course and build it as they go with their subject matter experts. That's actually, Mike, really smart.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And here's the model. I mean, it's this simple. And I learned it from a gentleman named Stu McLaren, to be fair, who teaches how to build courses and sort of membership programs. Here was the model I chose. There's all different models out there. A 1 hour lesson on each module. So me, 1 hour, and I would still engage and do breakouts and things of that sort. A half-hour session that was a Q&A, and then a half-hour session that was a hot seat, best practices. Now, you could spread those one a week. You could do all 3 in 1 week. You can decide how you want to do that, but you've got 12 modules now, in my case, times 2 hours. I just gave you the 2 hours, and you got 24 hours, and these were all pre-approved for CEUs. So that was a big deal for those I work with.
That is a brilliant model, but I think it also points out that it is only possible if you have that depth of expertise. Mm-hmm. You couldn't just magically make this happen if you hadn't spent years and years developing the content that you have on the mission that you're on. So that's amazing.
Well, I appreciate that, Liz. And what's interesting is it wasn't the content people would have thought. Let me explain by that. When I did that webinar, it was helping people who are in the field of work who hire me the most often be better at what they do. It wasn't my program. It was my pull the curtain back and show you how to be more effective at doing this kind of work. So the whole course is how to be more effective at training, particularly on the topics I teach on. It was specific to that. So each module, you've really got to know what you're talking about, because you're sharing 2 hours of how-to on the content people don't normally look to you for. So you have to really have a background and a history there. In my case, in this case of 33 decades, 30 years of training, I'm fortunate that I have that depth, so I could do that. But I agree with you 100%. If somebody's like, oh, I'll just wing it as I go, you better be an expert, because here's what will happen. I had people on this course that have been doing work for 20, 30 years in the field too, who were taking the course. They would have known in a heartbeat if I didn't know what I was talking about. They would have called it out if anything could have done harm, in their opinion, if you're teaching it the wrong way. You had to be on your A game every day.
So Mike, this is fascinating, because one of the reasons Eliz and I started the webinar talk show is early on in the pandemic, we realized that too many people were doing webinars as a talking head over PowerPoint. And you bring to the fact not only decades of training on what is a difficult topic and a sensitive topic, but also you're a super high energy, polished stagecraft speaker. And I've always said for years that it's not a fight between content and speaking ability. The best presentations have both. Mm-hmm. Why do you think more people aren't like you?
Well, I don't know if too many people really want to be like me. I mean, you also have a hyper mind and everything else. So there are negative sides to the positive sides, right? You know what? I started mission based. And so for me, I cared about the topic first. And unfortunately, we all know people in the industry who have said, hey, where can I make money? Like, what topic should I be addressing right now to make money? So they were never about expertise. They went out and got enough expertise to give their program.
And we're seeing a lot of that now, I think, more so than ever, right?
Yeah, because they're panicking financially. And not that we didn't all panic financially in March and April, and that our world has panicked financially, not just our industry. It's a real pain. Unfortunately, though, now the danger of that is somebody presents themselves as an expert where they're not. And on a topic like mine, you could literally do harm to people in the room with one wrong word choice. You could accidentally blame victims of violence, dating violence, sexual violence by one wrong word choice. So we have to be really careful as fellow speakers, meeting planners, and professionals watching this, that when people are having these conversations, that we are looking for depth that can bring energy and engagement, and not just, oh, is this person's a good storyteller or this person's, no, you need the depth, especially live virtual, because otherwise they could watch Netflix for cathartic entertainment. And that's our competition. People don't realize that. This is no longer a competition about who's on the stage next. It's about what could they be doing on their computer instead.
Right. Or having you sort of in their ear, sort of kind of in the background while they're doing other things on the computer that they're watching the program on. I mean, getting people engaged in a topic is more challenging, I think, now than ever, which of course is why Tom and I are a big fan of an interview like this, having an engaged conversation, because the energy is different. Like, I have to admit, it was a long weekend for me. I did not have enough coffee this morning, but being engaged in a conversation about an interesting topic just changes the energy. And it's not just for us who are having the conversation, it's for the people who are engaged in the conversation in the chat or watching it from their bedroom. That energy makes a huge difference.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing, you need to visually entice too. So I'll give you a quick example here. Eliz, I believe in this, but if somebody's coming on one of my programs, I'm going to have fun countdowns. Like, I'm going to have stuff they've never seen before, when there's going to be music playing, and I'm going to be talking to them as they're coming on. Hey, where are you coming in from right now? And they'll be like, I'm coming in from the Emirates. I'm coming in from Texas. And you're getting them excited. Everybody's getting in the chat, and they're seeing this countdown happen around. You're like, this is something different. And then when you have transitions between when you sit and when you stand that have little video transitions, and people are like, oh, that was funny, or that was cool. And then now you're standing and you're giving them different perspectives. And here's the reality. This is not high tech. You don't need high tech anymore to just do a couple little things to make a huge difference, especially as professionals running events out there.
That's absolutely true. And I want to go back to what you said earlier, is really understanding what is possible using the technology that we have to create something very, very effective. So if you had the opportunity to offer some advice to our meeting planning professional colleagues, or somebody who's working in HR and recognizing that they need to do some training on, workplace respect, that sort of thing, what kind of advice do you have for them?
Well, if they're looking for, you mean how to make their trainings better, that kind of a thing? As far as
why should they decide to do it online?
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Well, but why do it online is most obvious right now. If you're doing HR programming, you should care about safety. And so it should be common sense that you putting people in a room right now is still against most protocol. And I'm actually going to say something that could upset some speakers, but we got to be honest here. So I believe live virtual is more effective than live on site right now. I am doing both. And I still have people bringing me on live on site, and the far majority are live virtual. Let me say why I just said what I said. And it doesn't mean that, keep in mind, both are effective. I'm just telling you that right now, I think one is slightly more effective than the other. So I'm not saying don't do live on site, but they're both effective in what we see in our results. Here's the difference though. Live on site, now we're 6 feet apart in every direction, right? In theory, we are 6 feet apart in every direction. That used to be a crammed room where when one person laughed or reacted, the energy flowed through the room. Now it dead stops if it starts at all because there's no flow anywhere. People do not want to respond through a mask. They just don't want to do it. Before you'd be like, yes or no, and the room would be like, yes. Now they're like, yeah. Yeah. Same people, because there's a mask. There's literally a physical barrier to their engagement. So people who have done live on site can tell you it's a whole different ballgame of energy. Now, it doesn't mean we can't make it effective. We've had some really effective on-site programs. I also think the live virtual right now doesn't have any of those barriers. So you can talk, you can see, you can be comfortable, you can engage via chat. And so some might say, well, can you prove whether it's more effective? I'm going to say that I think they're at least equal, if not a little bit more right now, people comfortable with live virtual than being in a room. Because also when they're in a room, they might not be comfortable. They might be sitting there going, I don't even want, what am I doing in here? I hope I don't get COVID. And so they have a psychological fear happening that makes it difficult to learn under.
Plus, I think, and you may or may not agree, I think that for the short term of the next several years, hybrid is going to be real common. Even once we can sit together, there's still going to be people who, for whatever reason, preferred virtual. I know some people who actually prefer it this way. Most would love to get back to live rooms, but some people prefer this. So I think that you've got the situation where I think speakers and trainers are going to have to learn to be able to be effective virtually, because even when they get back on stage, they're going to be virtual at the same time.
Yeah, and I've done hybrid. And what's interesting about hybrid is you got to set it up right for success for everybody. Now, what I mean by that is if you're going to do hybrid and they think, well, hybrid's going to be, we're going to record you and send you out to the world. That is not hybrid. That's people watching a recording of me with no ability to interact like everybody in the room. So what I do when I do hybrid is I say, I need a screen 10 feet out in front of me that I can see what's happening with the live virtual audience dead in front of me, huge screen, so that people would sit around that, not obviously have their own views blocked who's live in the room. So we're having a true hybrid experience where people can engage from both platforms and be included.
Yep.
That's the key. A lot of hybrid is not hybrid. It's we're shouting out a recorded version live, but they're not really engaged in any way. So I think that's really an important discussion when we talk about that.
Well, and meeting planners are telling me that doing hybrid is like planning two entirely separate events simultaneously, because realistically, you need either a pair of hosts that one can do live and one can do the other, or you need two separate hosts, because someone has to address that at-home audience as their eyes and ears in the live room, or the people feel disconnected. So it's not as easy, as you said, as just broadcasting the speaker.
Correct. It's not. And well, that's not hybrid, right? That's what I'm saying. That's not hybrid. And so that is correct. What we'll do is we'll say, I want you to interrupt me. If anything happens as a live virtual that is worthy of us discussing, I want you to interrupt me. So like if there's a comment I can't see, and here's why this is important on topics like mine that are sensitive. If nobody addresses the comment that's made that creates the elephant in the room, it looks like nobody understands the harm that potentially was done, or they don't care. And it might have just been nobody saw it. So you need a host watching for that. If they throw it my way and go, Mike, real quick here, could you address a comment that just occurred on the live virtual? Now everybody sees the concern of that comment, how we address that comment, and people know the organization gets it and cares. That's critically important versus just, and I know people going, well, then we'll just shut down the chat. Well, now we're back to just watching the recording. So that's why you want to have somebody, once again, with expertise, because those are the moments you need a quick host to just say, can you address this, please?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And this has been a great half hour. It went like that today. I mean, we have been so lucky to have such great guests in our second season. And thanks, Mike. This was really wonderful.
Well, thank you, Tom and Liz, for having me here. This was an awesome conversation. I had fun. So thanks a lot.
If someone watching needs to find out more about you and the Center for Respect, how do they find you?
Right there we go. Whoop, there. There we go. Okay. Centerforrespect.com, right there, right above me. That's the easiest way to find me. Absolutely. No matter what world they're in, whether it's corporate, it's military, it's education, it's centerforrespect.com.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for joining us today for this amazing conversation. We'll be back on Wednesday. We're going to take a little departure and we're going to talk about how we're going to weather the stress of the election over the next couple of weeks. I have some strategies for you if that's something that you might be feeling a little anxious about.
I think everybody should tune in on Wednesday and get your grandma to watch too.
Indeed. And then we'll be back the following week with, oh gosh, we have some great guests. We have Brian Walters and Amy Landino next week. So that's going to be great. If you wanted to find out more about the Webinar Talk Show, Tom, where would they find us?
You would go to webinartalkshow.com, or you can go join and like the Facebook page, which is Webinar Talk Show. And you can find all of our past interviews there, and there are some great ones. So check that out.
Indeed. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. We'll see you on Wednesday. Have a great day.